Dun, dun, dun. It is Feedback Friday. Today we're going to teach you some things to make your paintings better and to help you get to the next level. We're also going to teach you a composition called Portal. We've talked about it in the past, but it's so important. We're going to talk about it again. We're going to review 6 different paintings that you guys have submitted and see if we can make them a little better. So let's look at those paintings right now, see what we're going to do. Okay, I'm not going to comment on them. We're just going to flip through them and see what we've got. There's some good paintings in there. You guys are rock stars, and I love that you're doing that. And so we are gonna get started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rose.
Okay, when you guys watch this, you're gonna start seeing problems in your own paintings. I know I do. When I critique other people's paintings, then when I'm painting a painting, I go, look, no, you can't do that. You told them not to do it. You can't do it, right? That's what happens. I encourage you, as you're watching today, by the way, hi, thanks for being here. I encourage you to ask yourself, what do I see in this painting that needs to change? So when I show those paintings, I want you to go, what would I do? What would I change? What? Maybe it doesn't need anything. A critical part of learning is to paint by getting feedback, or to get feedback when you paint anyway. Make sure that you can see your mistakes. We cannot see our own mistakes because we're too close to it. See what's drawing the eye, see what the composition looks like, see what the values look like. For me, it's much easier to learn from other people's paintings when being critiqued on my own, because, my brain goes defensive mode, right? I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it. We're all trying to protect ourselves. So anyway, we're going to get the show started. Thank you so much for being here. It's Art School Live. Today is Feedback Friday, and we are here every weekday at 12 noon Eastern. Free art lessons during the week. So here's what the week looks like. Mondays we do marketing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have guest artists teaching art, and Fridays we give feedback. We believe anybody can learn to paint. Now, as publisher of art magazines and newsletters, and often a competition judge and artist coach, plus a couple of decades of painting. I was painting just last night. I might be able to see some things in your paintings that I can improve, or then again, I might not. At least provide a different perspective. And by the way, you have 5 painters in a room, and you ask 5 of them to critique it. They're all going to see things that are different than what you see. So we have some rules. I don't like rules generally, but here are the rules. One is always be kind, right? I mean, can you imagine if I said, oh man, that's awful? No, you always want to be kind. You want to be constructive all the time. You don't want to tear somebody down and make them run away, right? And I've seen that happen so many times. We don't want to do that. Everybody's at a different stage. So when you're looking at these, instead of going, oh man, that one's awful, instead go, wow, this person's really making progress, because you don't know where they've been and you don't know where they are. So everybody's at a different stage. So be forgiving in that. Don't just be somebody beating your chest and saying, I'm gonna beat them up for doing a bad thing. Well, there is no such thing as a bad thing. Just got to learn. Now, I don't know if you've heard my story, but I couldn't paint. I felt like you had to have natural talent. After trying, I convinced myself I didn't have it. Don't do that to yourself. You can do this. You can succeed. You just need great teachers, great practice, great help. All right. We all have bad days, but at least they're good days when you're painting, right? So nothing personal here. Everything's opinion. So we're going to get started now. And now keep in mind, I can't get into the comments, but you guys say hello in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. That would be really cool. If you guys want to submit paintings for the future, go to streamlinepublishing.com/feedback. All right. Now, if you make some changes after the fact, right? If we critique your painting, you make some changes, send it back to us so we can show a before and after. Sound like a plan? Okay. Let's do this. Let's pull up the first painting here. All right, so we have a beautiful landscape painting, and I cannot tell you, it's Anne from New York. All right, Anne, congratulations. We're going to pull up my tablet. The first thing we're going to do is black and white, And what I like to do, everybody, in case you're new to this, is I like to first off look at the composition, because there are two things that really make a difference. One is composition, two is values, meaning darks and lights. And so we're going to look at composition because composition matters so much. So the thing I like to do is I like to go dead center and draw a line. Dead center. Then I like to go to the dead center of the painting horizontally and draw a line. And what you really typically want to avoid, now there are no rules, but if there were rules, this would be one. You want to avoid having anything real close to this horizon line. All right. Now, again, sometimes you can pull it off. And you want to avoid having something real close to that. And the horizon line is a little lower. I would say this horizon line could stand to be just a little bit lower. That would make, because it looks very centered. So you got to, even if it's not centered, it looks centered, right? So that's one thing to look at. The next thing we do is we do the equal thirds. Boy, I've got a wobbly line today. And then we want to say, all right, can we find a focal point in one of these 4 quadrants where the thirds meet? And usually you can have 1 and sometimes 2, but you never have 2 focal points. You always have 1, but sometimes you can have what I would call a supporting focal point. So like if this was a focal point, that could be a supporting focal point there, right? And that's kind of what's going on here. So if we look at this, we have, I would say this is the focal point because we have this tree here. It's kind of right dead center between these focal points, and that's okay because they're linked, right? So that can work, and then you've kind of got these as secondary or as focal points, and then this tree back here kind of goes as the third focal point, or second, maybe second. Okay, now the next thing we're going to look at is value, and ask yourself this question: where is the darkest dark? Where's the darkest dark in the painting? And I would submit to you that the darkest dark is right here. And so the darkest dark is in a place you're not trying to draw the eye. Now, the next thing you want to ask yourself is, where's the most contrast? The most contrast is right here in these bright spots on these trees. And so, and then we'll look at color later. You also ask yourself, where's the most chroma? So when you want something to go to the distance, right? You want something to read like it's going backwards in space. You want it to be darker in the front somewhere, a little less dark in here, a little less dark further back you go. So all this stuff back here would be a lot lighter. This dark is a little too dark for that spot. Now you want to define your line there, but what's happening is I'd say that you need to figure out how to get a little dark up front further. So for instance, if you put that dark under here and made this a little less dark, that would give you a nice dark up here. And of course, if you put a nice dark in your shadow up here, Anne from New York, then and make this darker than this dark, then that would even do it better. So you got a little dark over here too. So overall, I think it looks pretty cool. Let's look at the color version. All right. Now, on the color version, you've got, we've already talked about that. So let's just play this game. Let's take this dark and put this dark in here. Now, that helps. And then I think, I would probably take a really dark green, maybe even make it a little darker than that, and just get, just really nice dark into here. I'm trying not to cover up your name. And then that, and maybe I like to tie my darks together. And so maybe that should be a little less dark. And then this one back here, we want it to kind of be just a little less dark. So maybe we'd just go into here. That's too light, but maybe we just go in here and make this just a little less dark. And then back in the background here, we probably would take these darks. I would I like blues and purples for distance. And so I'd probably put kind of a bluish gray in there. And I would probably even consider doing that for my trees back there, because sometimes you want something to read distance. If you put it blue or purple, see how that, you don't have to have all that detail back there, but see how all of a sudden that feels like it's gone way back in space. And if you can put some of that reflection on there as well. Now, the thing that is happening here is that these trees are your focal point, and I think pretty good. And what's happening is they're like glowing, and that's really a nice feeling. And the reflections, by the way, are beautiful. You did a really nice job on the reflections. And so let's figure out now what we do with these trees. I think what I would like to see, now this is a preference thing we have to keep in mind, but what I would like to see is, if this is going to be my focal point, I would like to see maybe we pump up the light, and notice how we've got really sharp edges. First off, these trees are almost exactly alike, and that is typically something you don't want to do. You want to have two trees next to each other. The one thing you want to do is have a little overlap. You've got a little overlap, so you could do that, but you would maybe make this one smaller. Maybe it feels like it's going in the distance, but you don't want them to be the same shape. Now, the other thing you've got is a tree like that, and a point like that is kind of acting like an arrow. And what is it pointing to? You've got to ask yourself that. But here's what I'd probably do. If this is what I wanted my focal point to be, I would probably, try to enhance parts of this in light, and then not, and maybe just a touch of it in here, but not so much in the back one. And then I would probably look for a way to kind of reduce this down and be a little bit darker, because you're still, even if it's in light, you're still going to see darks. And so get some darks in there, because you want to create what's called form. And form is essentially making it feel round, right? So you get some good darks in here, and that will help. The other thing I would probably do is I would probably, like I said, I would change the shape of that one so it's not the same shape. And maybe you want to also be careful about equal spacing, right? You don't want everything to be equally spaced. So trees are not perfect, typically, even perfect trees like these. So I think that does it. And just doing that alone is going to make a big difference. This big tree in the background, that bell means I'm supposed to stop talking. I'm not so sure it's lending anything, so I might just consider getting rid of it entirely. And I'm not so sure that you need it, and just figure out how to make it go away. And the reason being, it's just now it's not drawing the attention. See how everything now is going to that eye. Okay, let's go to our next one. All right, we have a portrait of two friends, or mom and daughter, or something. I don't think it is. I can't tell. Okay, so portraits are a little tougher, especially for me. I love to do portraits. I paint portraits. I love portraits. And this comes from Gary George in California. Congratulations, Gary. This may be, who knows, friends, daughters, family members, whatever. So, to me, Gary, I'm not exactly sure where to start, but I think I think composition is a little tougher to do in a case like this, but let's play the game. Okay. You got your line between the two ladies kind of right down there in the middle, and you're okay. The eye line on this one is kind of right down the middle here. And if you move her up, the eye line is going to be moved up. So maybe you want to play with that just a little bit. I'm not so sure. In terms of composition for your grid, you've got an eye here, you've got an eye here. And the hard part about a double portrait like this is, like, where do you want the focal point to be? So the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, what is drawing the eye that I don't love? And what I don't love is all this white drawing the eye. So what would happen if we made this feel more traditional? You want the light, but what would happen if we figured out how to just make all that light go away so that it would draw the eye more. And I like really dark, personally, I like really dark backgrounds for my portraits. Now, what Rembrandt did, Rembrandt had a side of the face that was heavily in light and a side of the face that was heavily in dark. And now that would be called a Rembrandt style portrait. Just see how just doing that has changed it a little bit. I would also look for an opportunity to look for what's drawing the eye. And to me, these whites are drawing the eye. So I might consider looking for an opportunity to mute some of this back and not make it so bright everywhere, because what you're trying to do is make a good portrait. And so I'm looking for maybe keep a little of that bright in there, but the idea is I want to really mute this back. So you got a lot of light hitting this arm, and you have more light hitting the arm than you do almost up here. So again, what you might want to consider is muting back this arm a little bit, because it's pulling the eye, and look for a way. You're going to have to sometimes, the problem with a photograph is you have to live with the light or you have to change it. So the other thing is, I think you've done pretty good job overall. But what I notice on this face here of this lovely lady is it feels like it was taken by a flash. In other words, the light is just filling up that whole space, and it's hard to get any form. So when you're painting a portrait, you've got to figure out, how do I get some form in this face? You've got good form in the other lady's face, but how do I get some more form in this face? Because that light's going directly on. And you're just going to have to go into Photoshop or something and doctor your image and see if you can get some form. But form is basically, getting things a little darker and seeing if you can figure out how to do that. All right. And I do a lot of portraits. And so this is a sacrilege. So the other thing is there one portrait that you want to bring more attention to than the other? Probably not. But anyway, I think this is really well executed. This is well executed, but it just needs some form. This one somehow had form and this one didn't. Let's look at the color. Now, I will tell you that Dan Green, who painted my portrait one time, said, "You never put a smile on a painting." And I don't know why. I'm just telling you what he said. Okay, so in the black and white version, the color version, this is much stronger. But again, let's go back in and just see if we can make this better. It almost looks like you merged two different photographs with two different light. Maybe you did, but if we just go in here and we make that darker, already it's just going to strengthen the portrait. And now the form is actually pretty good in the color version on this, so I wouldn't be too worried about that, but maybe darken the hair a little bit in some of these spaces. What we have a tendency to do is we tend to get a little too blendy, and sometimes, and there's different styles of portraits, but sometimes you can easily blend those darks out, and you want to make sure that you get good, good darks, so that you can create the sense of form and try to figure out, I don't know where the light is coming straight on, so this is kind of hard. If I were doing this on my own, do you want to play that game for just a second? What I would probably do, forgive me for doing this. This is very, very insane. Keep in mind, let's just play this game for just a second. I'm going to take the smile out, and I'm going to put the hair dark and the hair dark here. And then I'm going to go to a mid-tone in here and a mid-tone in here. And I'm going to keep this one eye in the dark very, very light. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pumping up the light dramatically, like over here. I'd probably go more dramatic than that. Really pump up the light on this side of the face. And that would give you kind of a Rembrandt-esque kind of a thing. But again, that's crazy. And they look like crazy people now, so we won't do that to them. Anyway, I think, you know, you did a really nice job, and it's really hard to find anything that really needs to change. But I would at least work on a little form in here and darken some of this down, darken these clothes down, and that will change the mood of it. Her gray hair looks, it probably needs a little bit of color in it, and maybe a little color, a couple spots of color in her blonde hair. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, this is really pretty too. This is a landscape from Lee Townsend in Wisconsin, I guess. I assume that's a Wisconsin painting. Okay, so let's look at this from a composition standpoint. So let's go dead center, and let's go dead center. And what's happening here is we've got kind of our horizon line dead center, from what I can tell. So again, what I would probably do is just move that horizon line back there. So let's just do that for grins. This is easy to do in this particular case. So just by doing that, look how much further it looks away, right? So we can make it look real far away if we want to. You know, if we want to mess with the tree line or something, we can make it look like, wow, there's a focal point there. There's almost a portal. And so the next question then is, where's the darkest dark? Well, you've got all your darks in here, and you've got some good darks up in here. They're a little spotty. Spotty sometimes creates busy, and I know you're doing footsteps or whatever. And so sometimes you might want to just make this more of a solid dark in here, so that, you know, maybe it's I'm covering your signature, maybe it's a shadow or something. Just, it makes it less busy. And then, you know, but what's nice about this is you've got it so it's curving around. We're going to go to the color. Well, let me just say this. These darks feel a little dark for me, so I would try to get a little bit darker. Now, you're not going to get a shadow that dark on snow, but you know, you could put a rock up here or something, but get something a little darker here, and then reduce this dark down so it's not quite as dark in here. And that's too light. It's very delicate, but maybe reduce it down to something like that. And then it's going to read like distance. Now you've got some darks in the background that need to be even lighter. And so we would probably, these are going red on me here, but we'd probably, maybe we'll go blue here. Probably figure out how to make these go a little bit more distant. Okay, so we got this nice lead in, then we're leading the eye back here, but when it gets back here, it doesn't know where to go. That's why I put that portal in there. But the color one's going to change everything, right? Okay, so again, this is really nice. This is purple in here, and artistic license. You've got drawn a lot of attention to this corner, and I'm not so sure I would do that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this blue color that you've got, and I'm just going to go a little bit darker, and I'm just going to, now that's probably a little bit the wrong blue, maybe get it a little grayer. I'm going to get that dark in this corner, and I'm just going to try and make this just a little bit darker up front, so that I can create that sense of distance. And again, you don't want too much in snow. And then you can kind of carry this forward. You can still have this smudge in here. But what's happening here, and this is really lovely, I like it a lot. What's happening here is you're drawing my eye in here. You're drawing me to here, to this tree. Then you're drawing me to that tree. Then you're kind of drawing me there. And then you're drawing me to all that light on top of those trees. And I think you've done a really effective job of that. And I don't think there's much more I would change, other than what I talked about is maybe you've got a little spot of light in here, so maybe we just enhance this a little bit. If we did the focal point, which we didn't really do, if we did the equal squares, you know, this area here is going to be a focal point, and this area here is one. And so you got to decide, which one do I most want to emphasize, this one or this one? and you get to decide that. But in any case, if you drive the eye back, you need to give it some eye candy. So eye candy would either be pumping up the light on here or maybe creating a portal in here. And so let's try both of those scenarios. One is to increase this portal. And what we've done here is now it's like, oh, you know, there's something going on. And so we can pull the eye back, and if we wanted to, we could just kind of do that and you know, really make it go back. So that's one option. These colors in here are all blending the same as these colors in here, and yellows get reduced as you go back in space. So you might want to either pump these up differently in the background. Let's just go find a way, you know, fall color is tricky because it can be very garish, but you might want to just say, okay, if this is my focal point, right in here, or right in here is really where it should be. So let's just, I know you're going to hate me for this. Let's see if we can move this around a bit. So if this is the focal point right in here, then let's put this portal right in here. Okay, we're just gonna, we're experimenting. Okay, so now we've got a portal there. Get rid of that. Now the eye is going to go back there, and so if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to take this light and I'm going to really pump up the light right on this one. It's still got to be a little bit lighter because of the distance, but you could just really pump up the light in here, right there on the focal point, and then everything else kind of works. That's one option. The other option is to, you know, you can still leave the portal in, but if you want your attention going here, then I would ask yourself, okay, how can I pump up the light just a little bit more on these trees? And I like to put a little yellow in my light. So maybe just pump that up, get a really good dark next to it. You can put a real strong dark right at the focal point and get a good dark so it really makes it stand out. And then that gives you a pretty interesting painting. Anyway, I like it. It's pretty fun. I would do both of these. I do that, and I would brighten that up in the background just a little bit and look for a way just to make that read a little bit distant color. Nice job. I like this. I like this. But this, by the way, this is radiating out, and so you're taking me in this direction. What you might want to do is take me in this direction. So radiate your shadow out that way. I know that's kind of playing a game. Your light is coming from here. Okay, what's next? Oh, we have a child. Okay. Now this is from Terry Wilkinson in Beachmere. I don't know where that is, Terry, but nice job on this. Okay, so compositionally, a portrait like this it's not going to really matter too much, but I would be careful about dead center. So you do have the eyes kind of almost dead center, and you have the nose dead center. And so you might want to consider moving this over just a little bit so that the eyes are over here. And I would probably consider, you know, you can't really go up any further. So I think just leave the eyes there. But if you made this portrait so that you've got the face here and you got a little more space over here, that could be good. I think, you know, overall, I think it's really well executed. It feels to me like there's a little drawing off right in here, but I can't tell for sure. And it depends on your image, your photograph. But the thing about this particular one is it feels like it's a little bit washed out. Now you've got, this is what we call high key. It's very bright, you know, a lot of brightness, and that's fine. I do high key. As a matter of fact, I just did a high key copy of 𝗪𝗵𝘁 from Sargent. I went to the Sargent show. But all this gray in here feels a little washed out. And the whole painting overall feels like this would make a really good underpainting, but I would go over one more time and just get a little bit more solid, firm brushwork in there. The other thing that I would do is I would look to enhance my darks a little bit. Your darks feel, your darks on the shirt and the shadows feel a little light. And you've got, with a child, you got to be careful because you got to keep the skin pretty light in this case. But I think what you can do is, again, enhance your darks a little bit, get some form in there. And your darks have kind of gone gray. And so look for an opportunity to get a little form in this face, and not a whole lot. You've done a good job, but just a little tiny bit more in your darks, and it can make a pretty big difference. Remember that upper lip is typically in shadow. And just get just a little touch of something that's going to give you some darks, and that will matter. And then I would just kind of darken this shirt quite a bit, put some spots of light on it, but darken it. And then the question is, do you want that bright background or do you want a dark background? You know, it's a preference thing, but you could go, you could go big time dark on that background if you wanted to. And that makes that kid with the blonde hair just stand out. And it doesn't matter if what you see is on a dark background or not. Just see how much he stands out when you put that on a dark background. I tend to like dark backgrounds. Can you tell? All right. Nice job on that. Anyway, let's go to the color. Now we've got, all right. So to me, this, again, it feels to me, Terry, like your brush is a little dry. I'm feeling like a dry brush stroke in here. Maybe that's intentional to create the sense of terry cloth or something. But again, I think if you just strengthen your darks, strengthen your colors, there's a concept that a lot of people use, and it's, let's see if I can show you. Let's say that that's way too dark. Let's see if we can get a decent dark. Okay, so we're going to get a little decent dark on this kid. And where dark and light meet, so let's just see if we can figure this out. Oh, this would probably be a better place. Now this is a little too dark, so this is for an example. Where dark and light meet, there's oftentimes an intense chroma right at the edge of the light. And then you go into the light and it reads really, really well. Now this is obviously needs to be blended. And that's again too dark for this particular scenario. But the idea is you want to get a little bit of color in there because it feels like it's a little devoid of color. And so we might see if you can just improve the form a little bit, and that might make a big difference. But it feels a little washed out. I think you need a little bit more confidence with your paint. And that's just a matter of looking for, leaving your paint alone. Lay it down, leave it alone, and don't try to blend everything. Also, you look for a spot where you can really put a nice bright spot on that hair. Maybe again where light meets dark, you can have a little more intense color right there, and then you can go into a little darker to kind of create the effect. But again, I don't have your reference, and so I can't tell. Right now, I just made him look terrible, so I'm sorry. But he's got a big smile on his face, so that's what matters. Okay, what's next? Well, we have a landscape painting, and this is from an anonymous person. And I think that overall, I'm kind of liking it. It's got a nice vibe to it. And I'm feeling like it's a place I want to be. But I think there's a couple of things that are bugging me. And I'm just going to tell you what I think they are in a minute. But of course, I would always tell you that. But let's first off play composition. Dead center, no problem there. Dead center, no problem there. Maybe this dip right here, you might move that over so that it's not quite dead center. But that's not an egregious thing. Now let's look at our focal point. So we do equal thirds, equal thirds, equal thirds. And it's like, where do you want my eye to go? I don't know. And so we need to pick something that's going to become a focal point on this painting. And I'm not so sure where you want the eye to go. We'll see more in the color version. But what's happening here is this is what I call spotty, right? And it's loose. It's intended to be loose, but you can see some interesting pattern work. And patterns are nice. Patterns, you want to have patterns in paintings, but you want to be careful about repetition. So look at this. You got pattern, pattern here, pattern, 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 pattern here. And you got stroke, 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 stroke here, stroke, 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 you know, that kind of a thing. And what's happening is it's making the painting feel very busy. And busy isn't always good, but it can be. So one of the things I'll teach you right now is the idea of big shape. So when you're laying in a painting, lay in big shapes. Find a good kind of neutral-ish color for whatever you're doing and lay it in as one big shape, right? So now just by looking at that, let's assume I'm putting, I guess this is one mountain. So we're going to lay this in at one big shape. Now, see how soothing that suddenly makes this painting feel? It just feels like, oh, some rest, some beauty, right? And because it's not all that busy work. Now, you can put some busy work back on top of it, but you want to resist doing too much of it. And then if you want to, you know, you can take a, you can even go a little lighter and put a, you know, you could put another mountain in the background to create some distance, just very close to the sky color. And it's just like reads like, oh yeah, that's glorious. I want to be there. So that helps because this draws my eye in, surprisingly. But if you did big shapes, let's pick a color up front here. Let's say we've got a big shape in here. And you want to make sure there's an artist by the name of 𝗙𝗲𝗶𝗱𝗆, and he does these things where it's like, you know, shapes. But no shape is ever equal. And that's one of the things when you're creating big shapes, you want to make sure that no shape is equal. So let's pick an average color for this one. This one's going to be lighter than the one over here. And we're going to make it overlap a little bit so that it looks lighter against it. So we're going to fill that in, make this look like a big shape. Now, just by doing that, I'm going to actually change that. So put that there, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to bring it forward over here a little bit to create a sense of distance, right? Overlap can create a sense of distance. So what happens now is, all right, now I still don't know where to look. You can put a little trail in or something, but get these big shapes in, and then work from there, because that will make a big difference in how it feels. But what's happening right now is it's feeling a little, let's just put something in there. Maybe we'll put something in there. We'll move this back like that. And suddenly it's like, oh, something's going on there. I wonder what's going on there. And that can help. And then you can go in and you can put a spot of dark or light or something on top of it, and you know it will read, but you don't have to put all the spotty stuff. Just be careful about patterns. Okay, we're going to go to the color version though. See what we've done here. All right, so this feels, this makes more sense to me, because what's happening is this is a rocky terrain. I couldn't tell from the black and white. This is like Grand Canyon, like rocky land, and I feel like there's a river here. So it makes sense to have those spots in there. I would say, okay, where's my focal point? Let's pick a focal point. Let's assume that it's this in here. Let's figure out how to pump up some color in one area of this focal point, not too much. And I'd be careful about that. That's probably dead center. So maybe we do it, let's see, where's our focal point? Maybe we do it here, we do it here. Let's just, for sake of discussion, let's kind of do it in here. And you know, you've got some really lovely pinks and things. And so you've got, just pick some color, get some big amounts of color in here. And, you know, you can still do that in there as part of it. And then you can go in and lay down some of this stuff on top of it. But your values on these are too dark in there. So if you make them a little bit, even though they're going to read as dark, again, little spots of light is sometimes all you need. And that will dramatically improve it. The other thing is be careful where you have light drawing the eye. You got light drawing the eye here and here. If you got rid of that light in there, you don't have to show everything that you see in a photograph. You just want to kind of create a place of focal point. And then over here, this is not serving you because you don't want too much detail in there if you're trying to draw the eye into here. And then, you can go in here and put a couple of bright spots on, and so you've got like this, the light is hitting right in here. And then, where you have your focal point, you want to have like some bright tree, like you've got some bright trees. So put some bright trees right around where the focal point is, and take all these other trees, all this other bright, and mute it back because it's not serving you. It's pretty muted back over here, so it's pretty good. Now, this other thing is you got this river going in front of it. And I know it's paint what you see, but you might want to consider, let's make this river go into here, right? Just make it a better composition. Maybe the river goes into there. And again, get a good solid. Now, it looks like this is a row of trees or an island or something in here. I'm not so sure it's adding anything. It's subtracting probably. So I might consider just make this into a lake or something, and then put a big something up in the front, like a rock, right? See how this changes it, just how it just completely changes. And then you get, some little spots of reflected light on it here and there. And you can kind of draw the eye in there, and that can make a big difference. And then you want to have a rock or something up front to kind of create a sense of dark foreground that can really work for you. So I'm out of time on this one, but you could have some fun with this, but just make sure you put things where the eye is. Be careful about corners too, because you can really screw up with corners. But anyway, nice job on that. Okay, do we have anything else? Oh, we have a bicycle. All right, this is Audrey Kroll from British Columbia. Nice job on this, Audrey. Okay, I like this a lot. I think it's really lovely. It is, I'm a little confused by it looking at the black and white. It's like, okay, is this bike sitting in front of a pot, or is the pot on the back of the bike, right? Because there's an area right in here where these two are meeting. And so that's tricking my eye. So if the pot is sitting in the background, you're gonna have to bring it down a little bit or bring it over here a little bit. But let's look at composition first. Dead center, right? Dead center. Well, that's okay. It's fine in this particular case. The bike is not really dead center. You've got a space here, you got a wider space here, and that's good. So I like that. It could be either side of that. And you've got nice soft edges on this house back here, a little hard edge here. And I'm not so sure this window is adding anything, but let's look at the rest of the composition. Sorry. So equal thirds, okay, equal thirds. So you've got this line here on this equal third line and for that house, and that's really smart. So you got this and here and here. Where do you want to draw the eye? To the basket, to the flowers? You could move the flowers into the basket. That would solve that problem. But what's happening here is I'm like, okay, there's a lot going on. You've got, the other thing that you've got is where's your darkest dark? Dark, dark here, dark, dark there, here a dark, there a dark, everywhere a dark, dark. So again, let's get serious about this. Let's get a good dark in here. You got a nice dark on this tire. Now, all this other stuff back here has to become less and less dark. So, and it will just help it read. Get rid of those dark spots back there. And I would increase the dark spot on the seat. Oh, there we go. That helps. And that way, you've got some good darks in the front. But then everything in the background, let's kind of just get that blended in and get rid of these darks in here. And remember, they go back. So let's look at this in a color, see what happens. Okay. Well, I still can't tell is the plant on the back of the bike. And if it is, it's an awfully giant plant. And it feels to me like it could be sitting back here, or it feels like it could be on the back of the bike. So solve that problem. I don't know how to solve it. You know how to solve it. But the question is, where do you want the eye to go? So the eye in this particular case, okay, this is a sunny day. So if this is a sunny day, this bike is in light right in here. Okay. These flowers are getting light. I'm getting the impression the light is coming from up on top in this direction. If that's the case, this is going to be in light back here. Now, you've muted that back, but if it's a white house in light, it's going to be a different color. So I'm not sure we want to do that. Sometimes we have to experiment with it to see what happens. But what if we made this, okay, that's wrong. What if we made this a yellow color, right? So it reads like it's in light. And maybe I'm just going to take that window out for now because it's distracting. So what this does is this says, okay, there's something back here that's in light. And okay, now you don't know what it is because it could be just a big open space. So that's when you want to say, okay, well, this needs a window, you know, so you've got a window there and you've got some light curtains where it's hitting the light curtains, and then you've got a little blue on the inside of that space in there, kind of a thing. So that works pretty well. I would maybe, if this is the back of the house area, I would look for a way to define the edge there. And this dark back in here feels awfully dark to me. So, you know, a house in shadow is probably going to be something like this, right? So now that helps define the edge of that house back there. And so get rid of those darks back there. Now, again, I think that the flowers are confusing me. They're lovely, but where do you want the eye to go? You got to figure that out. So if we move the flowers, forgive me for doing this. I know you're going to be like, oh no. So if we do that, now it becomes about a bicycle, right? And that doesn't mean we can't put something in the background. We could put another sense of a window. Watch your darks on that. But you could have a sense that there's a window back there. Now this becomes a bike painting. And if you wanted to, you could say, okay, I'm going to throw some flowers in the bike painting, and we're going to really, we're going to pump up the flowers in here, and we're going to have a couple of yellow flowers, and what do they call the sunflowers? You could have that, have some flowers in there, and suddenly it changes. Now, the other thing you want to keep in mind is that you've got a lot of sharp edges here. And what you want is things to go in the distance, like the back of that seat. I'd probably fuzz that down just a little bit. I'd fuzz down the back of these fenders. Try not to have every little detail showing, because the more you can fuzz some of this back, it will recede. It'll feed, and not everything needs to be sharp, right? But you just know it's a bike. And, maybe this handlebar, just reduce that down just a little bit. And then I would, if I were making this all about the basket, I'd probably do this. I'd probably do, something like that, so that the basket's really catching a lot of light. Or maybe it's on the other side of it. I'm not sure. Maybe we'd do it like this. So basket is catching a lot of light. And suddenly it becomes about the flowers in here. And you could even kind of, you've got a bright spot in the grass here, and it's not helping you. It might help it read like there's some light, but I would kind of mute that back. And then, sorry to overcome your name here, 𝗙𝗲𝗋𝗆 from British Columbia, but I would kind of mute everything back just a little bit, so that you're making this about the light. Okay, there's my bell. That means I'm done. I've been fired. I have been fired. All right. Now you can have some, some bright spots right around the bike. So you're drawing a lot of attention to it. That changes it considerably. All right. Nice job on that. Okay. What do we have next? Composition, I'm guessing. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about composition. And so there's a concept called a portal. We've talked about this in the past, but I use this all the time. And there's a lot of ways a portal can be used. So you've got your painting, and you've got a great big bridge in your painting. And this whole thing is your bridge, right? And this is dark. And so now you've got a window into another world. It's like you're looking through one window into another window, right? So you could say like, okay, what's back here? All right, well, let's say there's this goes back to here, and then there's, a horizon line or something, and maybe there's a sailboat on there, or maybe there's a couple sailboats on there, or maybe it's a house, and maybe there's some row houses in here. But the idea is, and maybe this is a river. But the idea is you're pulling people in, and you're making this kind of your composition. So let's look at a different kind of a scenario for a portal. Maybe we can come up with something else. Maybe what is your idea on this? Maybe we would do, like, let's say we have a landscape, and we've got some big trees. Maybe we got a big tree right up here in front, another big tree, and you got the branches of the big tree coming over, and these big trees, they're kind of in the distance. And then you've got, so your big trees are coming over, your leaves are coming over, and you've again created a portal. Now you've got, like, okay, I got a road in here, got a little house down here at the end of the street. Maybe it's got a little tree, and the road is leading you into there. And maybe you can see a little bit of the mountain in the background, and some of that mountain is coming down. So what you're doing is you're basically creating a frame. A portal can be square, can be round, it can be anything. You just have to figure out what that might be. So if it were square, then what would be something that's square? Okay, well, maybe a railroad tunnel, for instance. Okay, now, so you could have, or it could be a doorway, right? I started doing a painting. I was at this gallery, and they had this beautiful doorway, and they had this beautiful door, and there was a pot, there was a table, and there was a pot of flowers. And I thought that would be a really cool composition. Now this is dead center, and so I would change that. I would probably make it more like that, right? So that could be a really cool thing. Maybe make that door a little taller, but sometimes it could just be the doorway, or maybe it's an arch. So there's a lot of different options, but then you're highlighting whatever's in there. Okay. Anyway, I think that does it. I just want to tell you a couple of things. First off, I'm going to Switzerland, and I would love for you to go with me. When I do trips, no brag, just fact. I got that from a TV show from my youth. When I do trips, we really do it up nicely. We go first class all the way. Now you've got to get yourself to Switzerland. We're going to start out we're going to fly into Zurich, then we're going to go to Lucerne. We're going to paint small villages around Lucerne. We're going to get a little time in Lucerne because we want you to have a little city life there. And then we're going to these small villages that you can only get to by cable car or only get to by tram. And there's no cars. And it's super, super quiet. You can hear the breeze coming through the mountains. You can see the landscape in the distance with the cattle and the flowers and the like the Matterhorn. It's going to be spectacular. We're going to several small villages. We work with locals, and we find out all the great spots that nobody knows about to go painting. And we're going to be painting for close to 10 days. We're going to wrap up the trip by going to Lake Como, which is an incredible spot. these are all spots that Sargent and Bierstadt and all the greats painted. And then there's an optional post-trip where we're going to go to Venice, Italy for a few days. And anyway, we're going to do it right. It's going to be a spectacular thing. And it's painting, it's touring. If you've never been to Switzerland, we'll take you around, show you some of the sites. But we're going to paint every day, or pretty much every day. Maybe we skip a day because we're traveling on a train somewhere. But it's going to be spectacular. And you want to get into this pretty quickly because they're selling pretty fast. And we would like to just kind of move this forward and get it done. We've got a few more seats that we've got to fill. And it's spectacular. So if you want to come, just come. Just join it. It's pleinair.switzerland.com/Art School Live. Plein Air Convention is coming up right around the corner. We're getting very excited. It's like we're down into our, everything with us is like airline terms. Like we're in the takeoff. Takeoff is when we're announcing something new. Then we're in the flight period, maintenance. And then we're in the landing period where we got to get all the tickets sold. And we're in the landing period, right? We're almost done with PACE. PACE is coming up. Plein Air Convention is going to be in Reno and Lake Tahoe. Californians, you guys need to step up. The East is beating you. All these people coming from the East and going to Lake Tahoe, and you're like, hey, it's close. I can go anytime. No, you can't. Not to PACE. Anyway, we're not going to be in that area for a long time, so make sure you come up. Plein Air Convention and Expo. All right. As a matter of fact, I think we have a little promo. Let's watch that right now.
Every artist deserves a chance to discover what they're truly capable of. This is yours. Join the world's top painters for 5 days of immersive learning, creativity, and connection in the most picturesque regions of Lake Tahoe and Reno.
I enjoy the scenery, I enjoy the locations, and I enjoy meeting people.
With hands-on coaching, 5 stages, plus daily painting sessions and a community of passionate creators, you'll grow your skills like never before.
It's a wonderful experience. I mean, it's a wealth of information. I got personal instruction from 𝗙𝗿𝗶𝗱𝗆. Do you believe that? I'm so excited.
It's just awesome to hear other people talk about painting.
At PACE, you're not just learning, you're connecting. Build lifelong friendships with like-minded artists who share your passion. This is where ideas spark, creativity flourishes, and your next breakthrough begins.
I would say just go for it.
As long as I'm living and able, I will come to these. Just sign up and go.
Don't wait. Seats are limited. Join us at the Plein Air Convention and Expo in Lake Tahoe and Reno. Secure your spot now.
I was talking to an artist yesterday, and she said, I didn't really think that I would ever want to go to a convention of artists because I didn't, felt like it was going to be too big and too crazy. And I wasn't feeling like I was a very good painter. And she said, so I almost didn't come. And then I came. She said, this was like 13 years ago. And she said, it was life-changing. She said, I met friends that have become friends for my life, good friends that I travel with, people that I know. We get together every year when we come back, and you always meet new friends. So that's part of it. You're also going to get a chance to, somebody said to me, I can't believe that I actually, I sat down at the bar next to this person, this famous artist. I started talking to him, and then, he's helping me looking at my work. And, and we have people who are out there when we go painting every day. The structure of this is pretty simple, really. We go in the mornings, we all meet in homeroom. We do announcements. We give away lots of prizes and big prizes. And then from there, we go to our individual stages, whichever one you want to go to. You can change every day, every minute, whatever you want to do. We've got a watercolor stage, a pastel stage, a demo stage, a main stage. And, you know, you can watch, there's 5 different stages. You can watch demos from all these different artists. We got over 80 of them. And then we all go painting in the same place every day. So one day we're going to go to Lake Tahoe, and one day we're going to go to Reno, and one day we're going to go to an old Western town. Another day we're going to go to the High Sierras. And we all get together and we paint. You can walk around, see other people. And we also have these pre-convention workshops, which are magnificent. One of them is Scott Christensen this year, very rare appearance from him. Another one is a very rare appearance from 𝗙𝗲𝗻𝗆𝗆𝗃, the great watercolor artist from Australia. And Carrie Curran is doing a basics course for beginners. We always get, you know, a lot of people in there because she takes you through all these exercises so that this doesn't become foreign to you, so that when you're watching the demos and you're out there painting, you're not feeling like you don't know what's going on. We kind of orient you to all of that stuff. And then if you want, those instructors in that group will stay with you the whole time, the whole week, and you guys can paint together. We do an orientation. So when we do the orientation, they go on stage, they talk about everything that's coming up so you know what's happening. And then they say who wants to be in a friend group or who wants to be in a dinner group. And people raise their hand, they put people together and you hang out together with them if you like them, which you usually do. We ended up having one couple meet through that and they got married. We had a lot of great friendships develop. So Plein Air Convention is a community. It is the community. It's Thanksgiving for plein air painters. It is really the center of activity for the plein air world. And if you're interested in plein air, this is the place. But you got to sign up soon. First off, the hotel rooms, you can still get hotel rooms, but the hotel already jacked the prices up. We had a special price, but it's still a good rate. And the convention price is about to go up again. So you want to get in, get this done while there's some seats left. Just saying. Okay, that's pleinairconvention.com. Hey, we have a free gift for you. If you want a free gift, if you're new to us, thank you for tuning in. We have this video. It's a couple hours long. It's called 97 Incredible Art Secrets, and it's yours. You can stream it instantly. Just go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. A lot of art instruction. And if you want the DVD version of that, just pay the shipping, which is almost nothing. All right. And then we would love it if you subscribe to this program. Just hit the subscribe button. Go to YouTube. You're watching this on a lot of platforms, but go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and that's Art School Live. All right. I'm Eric Rhodes. We're here every weekday at 12 noon. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of our family today. Make sure to share. Make sure to give thumbs up if we made you happy. Give thumbs up if we made you sad. And say something in the comments. Make sure to tell us where you're from. Thanks again for watching. Happy Friday.